This is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a marvelous day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. Yesterday, I posted a video about why Black Americans don't hate white Americans. And so I got some interesting comments from you. Some people said, well, I do. But I still think most of us don't. But I was thinking about that, and I want to know what you think about this. Black Americans and white Americans should have a summit. We should have a summit, and who should attend this summit should be descendants of enslaved people and the descendants of slave owners. We should have this first summit in a slave state somewhere in the South, Southeast, Southwest, Midwest. And in this first meeting, we would establish leaders from each group. The goal of this summit would be to establish that each group has made a major contribution to the development of this empire called the United States of America. And we would establish that we're going to meet once or twice a year for the purpose of figuring out how we're going to live in America like civilized people. Now, some black people said they're going to leave. They're going some other places to live. Some white people are going other places to live. But some of us are going to stay here. And for the ones who are going to stay here, we need to set some standards by which we're going to do business with each other, interact with each other, and treat each other. Obviously, we would have to start very small, but there would need to be benchmarks by which we could measure the progress. For instance, if a white person owns a bank and they're now lending black people money to buy homes at a rate of only 15%, well, in a year's time, they could increase that to 20 or 25%. That may not be a lot of growth, but that's progress. And let's say the black man who owns a car dealership is referring clients to this bank at a rate of 15%, would then increase his referrals to that bank from 15% to 20 or 25%. That would be the same rate of growth that the banker was lending black people money to buy homes. Now, obviously, this would take very sophisticated, serious-minded people to pull this off. And whether we're there or not, we need to get there because this country is not getting any better. People keep talking about civil war, civil war, civil war. And it may be some who may not rest until there is another civil war. I would remind them that the main people that were talking up civil war before lost. And they're going to lose the next time. And it's going to be worse. Now, I think we can predict that. But back to the summit. I believe that this could be carefully crafted so that black people and white people who have been here since the inception, since the beginning of this country, can figure out whether or not they want to live here as civilized people or continue as we are, lying about the history, people taking credit for something that they didn't do, and everybody in a state of confusion. We have to start at some level of reasoning, I believe. Now, this idea comes from two places. At Monticello, which was Thomas Jefferson's estate, plantation, he had children by a white woman and a black woman. And they have finally come to terms with that. So now they have reunions where the black side comes and the white side comes. And they get together and they have some kind of discussion about being descendants of Thomas Jefferson. That's really not enough, but that's a start. The second thing is that here in the South, white churches have begun asking black churches to come and worship with them. Now, white folk will show up, but the black folks won't. So it'll have to be kind of getting black people on board to do this more than it would be white people. That might sound strange, but I think it would be much harder to get black people to agree to something like this than it would be for white people. I think we have to assure black people that we ain't trying to build no friendships. We're trying to build a civilization where people can live here in peace and as much harmony as there is possible. And I think that's doable because they lived on those plantations together. The only problem was one of them was the oppressor and the other group was oppressed. So this would depend on whether the descendants of the oppressed and the descendants of the oppressors could come to an understanding again about building a civilized society that would be beneficial to both groups. Now, I know we should be doing this with black people. We should be doing this with each other too. But if we're going to live in the society and make it a more palatable society, then we have to start somewhere with white people. From time to time, we hear people say that there needs to be a discussion about race. I think that's much too broad. I think we need to narrow it down to who needs to attend this summit, where it should be, and what the topics of discussion should be. And each group should be honest about what their concerns are about their own group and what their concerns are about the other group. For instance, in our group, we are concerned about black on black crime. In white people's groups, I'm pretty sure they are concerned about the opioid crisis. And then we could speak on what our concerns are about the other race. Now, black people will say, well, we're concerned about racism. But we would have to really narrow that down to what does that look like. And then we could give some recommendations about how we would like for those racism concerns to be addressed. And we would have to be very, very specific. And then white people could do the same thing. Well, they can start saying, well, they're afraid of black people, because we hear that all the time. We're going to have to say, what does that look like? What are you afraid of? And then they can be specific. And we can address that from the standpoint of whether this is a real concern or an imagined concern. And the same thing with black people with racism. Sometimes white people would do something to a black person and they'll think it's racism. But if you're around them often enough, you'll see that that white person do that same thing to another white person. So this is where the communication will come into play. But the main thing is that there should be a code of conduct about how to behave and how to treat each other. No, we don't trust each other. No, we don't think they'll live up to a treaty. They didn't live up to any of the treaties that they drew up with the indigenous people. But you have to start somewhere. So let's have a summit. And let's say that the descendants of the enslaved people and the descendants of the slave owners are going to get together and we're going to have a summit. And in that summit, we're going to discuss how we want America to grow and move forward for the future and for future generations. We've had enough chaos, we've had enough disturbance, we've had enough violence and tragedy in the past. And we want to move ahead in the future, allowing the past to inform our future, but not letting it dictate our future. Now, we would begin by having a registration process for this first summit. And again, only the descendants of the enslaved and descendants of slave owners are invited to this summit. And when we meet for the first time, of course, we will go through the basic introduction and everybody introducing themselves. And then we'll have a breakout session where the descendants of the enslaved will go and the descendants of the slave owners would go. And everybody would pick their leaders. And then we would have committees where the committees would determine what the most urgent issues are to be discussed at the next summit. Now, I'm going to make a pitch for why I think this is a good idea. Because in Black America, the things that we find most pressing, except for black on black crime, is something that involves white people. Police brutality, anti-black racism, discrimination in housing, education, healthcare, banking, all of these things involve white people. So if white people are at the center of the problem, then white people have to be at the solution to the problems, right? In this summit, we need people from all walks of life. At some point, we would have to name our organization, but this is an exclusive organization for people who have had something in common since the beginning of this country. So I think that this is something that we could think about. Now, y'all will let me know what you think about this. But this is really something serious that needs to be, if not done immediately now, at some point in the future. It has to be done, and it has to be done by serious-minded people. Because America is a young country. We have been here from the very beginning, and we are going to be a part of the solution, or we're going to be a part of the destruction. Dr. Martin Luther King said we will either live together as brothers or perish as fools. And we don't want to perish as fools, right? Okay, my brothers and sisters, I'm going to end with this. We, Black Americans, have never put white people on the spot. We have never made them feel like they needed to take us seriously. And because we haven't made them feel that way, they haven't taken us seriously. What we will do is make a big deal out of falling in love with white people. Right now on my channel, if I say anything, especially about a black man and a white woman, I'm going to have people coming at me with, it doesn't matter who you fall in love with. Because the other day when I made the video about Dr. Cornel West marrying the Iranian woman, it was primarily black men that were dragging him. But they somehow turned it on me like I was saying that there was something wrong with him marrying her and that it was none of my business, and it wasn't any of my business. But the point is that they were calling him a good black man, and I'm agreeing with other black women. He's not a good black man. But the point is, falling in love is the big deal about trying to get along with white people. Black people need to do something besides fall in love with white people. We need to let them know that we are a serious group of people. And you do that with people by setting standards. This is how I want to be treated, and this is how I'm willing to treat you. Okay, y'all, let me know, and I know you will. Let me know how you feel about it. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share the video, and as always, have a great day.